All right, lesson 2.3 is multiplying and dividing rational numbers. So if you look in your book on lesson 2.3, there are quite a few new vocabulary terms. So just take that into mind when we're taking notes here. But a lot of them are ones that you've already seen before. So first, the identity property of multiplication. Anything times 1 is itself, really. Now, what is important here is the names. I don't think we ever call them by names, and you need to start learning the names so that you can use them in the future. So that's the identity property of multiplication. Anything times 1 is itself. The multiplication property of 0 means if you multiply anything times 0, it is 0. And the multiplication property of -1, really, it's just meaning that it changes the sign of whatever you're multiplying it by. But you keep the number. So, also this is multiplying numbers with the same sign and multiplying numbers with different signs. Very similar to the adding and subtracting that we did in previous lessons. So, I don't know if you've ever seen it where they do positive times a positive equals a positive, but you might want to write this just in your notes. Positive times a negative is a negative, and then a negative times a negative equals a positive. Just kind of a little reminder. Any product of two positive numbers is always positive, and the product of a positive and a negative is always a negative. All right, so simplify each expression. You do not need a calculator. All right, so 4 times -6 is -24. -10 times -5 is 50. Now, here's a decimal. I don't expect you to do that off the top of your head, but you can do a little multiplication. 9 times 8 is 72. 32 plus 7 is 39. I move my decimal one spot, and then I notice it's a negative times a negative, so that would make it positive. 39.2. Here with fractions, I just multiply straight across. So I know -2 times 3 is -6, and 3 times 4 is 12. That would be -1/2. All right, next, evaluating expressions. So for these, they want you to plug in numbers for X and Y or for A and B. So what you need to do is example 2. Try this in your notes, push pause, and then we'll go over it. All right, so C is -8 and D is -7. So this means -8 times -7. So that would be negative, and then -8 times -7 is a positive 56, so it would be a -56. This is -2 times -3, which is a positive 6, times -8 times -7, which would be 6 times 56, which I do not know off the top of my head, so I'm going to do it over here on the side. 6 times 6 is 36. 6 times 5 is 30, plus 3 is 336 is my answer. 336. This is -8 is C, and then I have a negative sign, and then I have a D, which is -7. Be careful with this. So many people think, oh, that's just -7. It isn't. That's a negative sign, and the D is completely separate. So that means -8 times 7, because two negatives make a positive, which is -56. All right, the expression -3 to the 4th means the opposite of 3 to the 4th. The exponent 4 applies to the base of 3. The negative sign is not part of the base. In the expression with the quotes around it, the product of -3 to the 4th, the negative sign is part of the base, -3. The exponent 4 applies to the base. So when you see it written like this, you might want to write this in your notes. This negative sign is completely separate. you have to do exponents first. So you would have to do 3 to the 4th power and then add on the negative sign at the end. So try these problems and then we will go over them. Okay, so this would be 4 to the 3rd power, which equals 4 times 4, which is 16, times 4. Now you can use a calculator because we're getting into exponents, which is 64, and then the negative sign comes out front, so it would be negative 64. Now this one's different. This means negative 2 all together to the 4th power. So it'd be negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. Well, this is negative 2 times a negative, which is a positive 4, times another positive 4, which is 16. Negative 0.3 squared. So this would be negative 0.3 times negative 0.3. So it should look like that if you did it this way. 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 0 is 0. This 0 you just add, okay. So I have this, and then I have to move my decimal 2 spaces. So it's 0.09, and then a negative times a negative is a positive. So my answer is 0.09. Here the negative sign's out front, so that's completely separate. So then I would do 3/4 squared, which means 3/4 times 3/4, which 3 times 3 is 9, 4 times 4 is 16. And then I can simplify. Can I? No, 9 divided by 3, 16 doesn't go into 3. So it would be 9/16, and then you would make it negative. All right, dividing numbers with the same sign and multiplying numbers are the exact same. So you know when I wrote a positive times a positive, it's the same. A positive divided by a positive is a positive. A negative divided by a negative is a negative. And then a positive divided by a negative is a, sorry, I wrote that wrong. This is positive and then this is negative. It's the exact same as multiplication. Okay, so try these problems quickly and then we will go over them. All right, negative 42 divided by 7 is negative 6, pretty simple. Negative 8 divided by negative 2 is positive 4. 8 divided by negative 8 is negative 1. And then negative 39 divided by negative 3 is a positive 13. Evaluate each expression for x equals 8, y is negative 5, and z is negative 3. So these are pretty challenging. So try these problems and then we'll go over them. All right, so I'm going to do 3 times 8 divided by 2 times negative 3, which would be negative 6, plus negative 5 divided by 10. Then I need to simplify. So 3 times 8 is 24 divided by negative 6 plus negative 5 divided by 10. So I'm going to do both of these operations first. 24 divided by negative 6 is negative 4 plus negative 5 divided by 10 is a negative 1/2. So negative 4 plus negative 1/2 is negative 4.5. All right, next is 2 times z, which is negative 3, so that's negative 6, plus x, which is 8, divided by 2 times negative 5, which would be negative 10. So negative 6 plus 8 would be 2, divided by negative 10 would be a negative 1/5. Remember, you can keep the negative in the top or the bottom. It does not matter as long as there is only one. All right, now 3 times z squared. Well, z is negative 3. So negative 3 squared is 9. 3 times 9 is 27, minus 4 times negative 5, which would be negative 20, divided by 8. So I'm going to have 27 plus 20 divided by 8. 20 divided by 8 is 2.5. And then you have 27 plus 2.5, which would be 29.5. The inverse property of multiplication is for every non-zero real number a, there is a multiplicative inverse, 1 over a. So copy this down. This is pretty important. Okay, the multiplicative inverse or reciprocal, keyword, of a non-zero rational number, a over b, is b over a. It's just you switch it. So here is an example, and then it says, evaluate the expression in example 7 for x equals 8, y is negative 4/5. So what you would do is, it just says evaluate x over y. So it wants you to find out x over y. So if x is 8 and y is negative 4/5, what you would do is you'd keep your numerator, and this is division, which means I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal of this, which would be negative 5/4. This would be 8 over 1. So 8 times negative 5 is negative 40, and 1 times 4 is 4. So my answer is negative 10. All right, that is it for your note.